Very much, Deputy Speaker. As many of us look back decades from now at what we worked on in this place, we'll often look at one or two achievements of which we're most proud. For me, of course, this moment was 15 years ago this month when I advanced the proposal for cycles of competitive price referencing to bring the prices of generic drugs down, a policy that was adopted by then Health Minister Tony Abbott and then subsequently by the Rudd administration and the Health Minister at the time, and it continues today. The initial planning for price referencing and generic drug reform saw that there was potentially $1 billion a year to save out of the PBS. At the time, 15 years ago, I wrote that the PBS was designed to deliver drugs affordably. We secured new patent drugs by locking them into agreed price and globally competitively. And in return, overseas drug firms gained access to the Australian market 4 times faster than many other countries. But now we see the PBS growing out of control. And at the time, 15 years ago, I noted that $6 billion a year was an outrageous amount, that most of this money was going to foreign drug companies, and being uncapped, the PBS also was growing 4 times faster than our GDP. Modelling at the time showed that what the nation spent on drugs would within a generation consume 1 out of every $28 of GDP. Of course, designed back in the 1950s, we all adore our PBS, but it was out of control 15 years ago. And a common depression medicine, for instance, at the time in New Zealand, $1.45 was what the government paid. UK, $4.97 for the same drug. But at the time in Australia, we were paying $33 for a month's supply of that drug. And it was simply because prices generically were upwards sticky. And so when a patent expired at the end of a 20-year period, you could swamp the market with generics that effectively could claim the same clinical impact, therefore the same price. Potentially dropping $1, there would be very little competition between generics because many of them were manufactured by the company that had actually made the innovative drug. And these big profit margins swirling around in the system allowed cuts for wholesalers and for pharmacies on the way through. Now, you don't need to be a genius to say that Australia could not afford that to go on forever, but there was significant opposition from the proposal. And I put it to good people at the time. The response was, why is this op-ed coming out now? Why is it being done if pragmatically it's been too hard to do up until now? But it's credit to then Health Minister Tony Abbott, who agreed to see me. I took down the Melbourne Age opinion piece that had come in April 2005. It eventually did run. It provoked a very strong reaction from both the Pharmacy Guild and Medicines Australia, who were concerned that any money taken out of the system may not return. But pharmacists wrote to me personally. All the best, they said, for negotiating the Guild government agreement, but everything in your article is plausible. This could well work, and it's ultimately a free market. There is too much collusion at the moment. This was coming from a pharmacist in my own electorate. As I further refined the PBS model by the end of 2005, I was approaching key departmental figures and wanting to run it by Medicines Australia, who expressed concern about the elements in the proposal, but could also see that there was a compelling argument for it. I noted at the time that GMIA had a proposal that obviously wouldn't be painful for them, but their offers of a 1% discount for every 10% market share I described as not computing. And in addition, we had Health riveted to price referencing, but it didn't appear to work as they currently decided. Price referencing needs to be there for innovative new products, but I argued that it couldn't be applied to those that were not. And a copay discount was the model that I thought would most attract a patient to go and buy a generic drug, which at the time was only 19% of the pharmaceutical market. My goal was generic drugs should be closer to 50%, as we see in parts of Northern Europe, that by saving money on generic expenditure, we can redivert that back to the innovatives. Within the government at the time, of course, industry advisors said to me, I think your proposal of saving $850 million a year is too high. I put it back in the range of 300. But I kept at it. My proposal was to save $1 billion, and the Department of Health has said, off the record, the savings since 2006 have amounted to $1 billion a year from the public purse and additional hundreds of millions of dollars for out-of-pockets for patients who can now buy generics at the competitive prices that are available in the rest of the world. I was pretty clear that if we wanted to have more money for innovators, we need to get generics cheaper the way the rest of the world did. Took on a lot of large and special interests, but eventually the Guild relented. Medicines Australia could see the way forward, and I'm proud to say this is probably one of the biggest social innovation savings from an MP since Federation.